right.
whether it's morally okay for public policy to reflect their viewpoint.
No, David Bahati, let him reply.
You'd be certainly entitled to his opinion, and that's why we celebrate this democracy. But the point I make, the point I make,
okay, let him make his point.
I make also is that Africa, especially from the country I come from, we are Christians, and we view homosexuality as sin, period.
Well, we're going to be talking to some Christians in the audience. Let me just get a view there. Your point.
I am an African. We believe in being remembered for eternity. So the only way to do that is through reproduction. How do I reproduce with another man and claim that I'm an African? It can't be done. I am a Christian. In a biblical point of view, homosexuality is wickedness. The only way for my surname to continue, you see, for my surname to continue is through reproduction. I am an African.
Okay, thank you. Right. Let's just stick to this question of, is homosexuality un-African? I want to go to an African traditional healer here in our audience. Nkunzi Kabinda is from here in South Africa, and let's just see some pictures of the kind of things that she does. And using herbal remedies, Nkunzi uses ages-old medicine to treat patients all sorts of ailments that they're suffering from. She's also a lesbian, married to Joanna, and they have an adopted daughter who you can see there. Nkunzi.
Yes, my dear.
Do you see any contradiction between being an African traditional healer and also a married lesbian?
I don't see any contradiction. For me, I am the child of the values. My ancestors, they accept me the way I am, and they allow me to have a wife.
This is your wife,
yes,
Joanna, next to you there. You've celebrated, is it 3 years you've been married now?
Definitely. And
Joanna. And do you have people who say, oh, I'm not going to go to Nkunzi because, you know what, she's a lesbian and she's got a wife? Do you have people who are slightly turned off by that and don't come to you?
Let me tell you about that. I do have clients who are older men, and when they come to me, they're like, definitely, you are helping us. And they accept my sexuality. I even got trainees, students that I'm training who are straight. And they came to me to be trained to become traditional healers.
You two just stand up for me. You stand up for me. Nkunzi and your wife, Joanna. David. Siddiqa. Stay standing. No, actually, come here. Come here. Come here. Does anybody have a problem? Does anybody have a problem with these two ladies? Siddiqa, you have a problem. You have a problem. David Bahati, you have a problem with two ladies like this. You would have a problem.
Well, I'm actually uncomfortable proceeding forward.
Yeah, uncomfortable.
Okay, but they have adopted a child presumably who was in a home.
She was suffering. Basically, when we found the child, she was definitely not in a good state.
So there you are. You've got a gay couple here who are actually helping a child that was abandoned for whatever reason. So they are helping the family values which you say you adhere to.
We do recognize that there are countries which have which recognize homosexuality as a human right. And in South Africa, certainly we do that. But this is something that we shall not allow in our country.
All right,
and we should be respected.
Sit down, ladies. Thank you very much, ladies. Okay. I have to say, though, Nkunzi and Joanna, a fellow South African here, Chief Luvaivai, he is chief of the Venda people. What's your view? You describe yourself also as a traditional South African. What about homosexuality? In your view, is it African or is it un-African?
In actual fact, you must remember that a culture is dynamic. It changes and it moves with time. But, however, there are some things that we cannot change them when it comes to the culture, more especially the value and the morals. We must look at the end results of this action that was happening here. What is going to inform our young children? Are we going to have a sustainability population?
Let them clap you.
We as traditional leaders look after the customs and the value of our African people. We cannot allow that.
You cannot allow same-sex... You don't like same-sex relationships. What do you call your traditional family values here, then? Polygamy, for instance, is something which is very common in African tribal society. You're saying that that's okay? A man can have 3, 4, 5 wives? Is that okay?
Polygamy, it is okay.
Is okay?
Yes.
How many wives do you have? How many wives do you have?
I've got 1 wife married officially now, and I'm still having 2 to marry.
So you are a defender of polygamy because you think it's traditional African culture and you think it's right. And how many children do you have? How many children do you have?
I've got 4 children.
4 children, okay.
So imagine if I was promoting what
4 official children?
Yeah, official.
How many unofficial?
I don't have an official. I don't have an official. What I would like to elaborate is that, what about if, during my time, if I came across with this situation, it means that I will be not having the kids. And then what is going to be a continuity of my chieftainship? Because there will be nobody called to take over.
So you're agreeing with David Bahati here?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I want to go to... Yeah, David, briefly, and you then want to go to the audience some more.
If I can make one point. You've talked about adopting children, but we have a number of children in Uganda who have been traumatized by the fact that they've been adopted by gay couples, and they are traumatized. Listen. They are traumatized by being forced to call a man mom or a woman dad. We are looking at them and they are traumatized.
Yubi, you wanted to come here and I want to go to the audience. Yubi?
Yeah, I wanted to make a small point. I think it might surprise many homophobes to know that gay people can actually procreate. Yes. So this argument...
Yeah, but he just said he doesn't like the idea of 2 same-sex people having a child.
Yeah, but then they need to pick their argument. Do they actually just don't like gay people full stop for no reason?
We'll develop that.
Or is it because of the false belief that gay people can't actually have kids or be good parents?
The theme I want to ask you, because you are from South Africa, you are a practicing Muslim. What was your feeling when you heard Sadiqa speak about her Muslim African attitudes towards homosexuality?
I think, Sadiqa, your attitude reflects attitudes of many women that come from Middle Eastern countries and North African countries that are of the Islamic faith. And I want to tell you that being homosexual, and this is probably another debate all on its own, but being homosexual is not un-Islamic. If anything, the Quran promotes diversity. And I think that a lot of what you believe and a lot of what you bring into the table is based on what you have been told by a patriarchal system. A patriarchal system that informs what African is, what un-African is, what Islamic is, and what un-Islamic is.
A Lutheran pastor here wants to say something. I'll hold the mic.
Yes. Hi, my name is Peter Oberholz. I'm Director of Inclusive and Affirming Ministries. What we do is we try and dialogue with all people, but especially Christians who believe in fundamentalism is the way. Now, I hear you say, David, it's un-African. Do you mean Africa before Christianity or after Christianity? Because you say we're also Christian. What is un-African is religious intolerance and fundamentalism. I'm hearing you speak from one side only, religious Christian fundamentalism, and I'm sorry to say the words you are using are identical to the 3 American pastors who went to your country to talk to you and your president and many leaders with their agenda saying to be trying to recruit the whole world.
All right.
So you want to be African of voicing the voice of right-wing American fundamentalists.
All right, okay. Just briefly address this point. You've heard it before that you have links with conservative Christian organisations, principally in America, the Family, it's called, for instance.
In relation to the piece of legislation that I'm proposing, it's a Ugandan legislation proposed by Ugandans. It has nothing to do with people from other countries.
All right, okay. I want to go to Victor Mukasa. Victor Mukasa, you are from Uganda, like David Bahati. You describe yourself as a transgender person.
I'm a human rights defender.
You're a human rights defender and a transgender.
Yes.
That rhymes. Okay. So, What do you make of what you've heard so far?
Yeah, I think it's just so disappointing to hear you, Bahati, telling lies to people here.
I'm sure he would not say that he's telling lies.
Yeah, he's telling lies.
Okay, he's got a different point of view from yours. Yes?
Okay.
So, you're saying...
Him telling people that homosexuality is un-African, and he links it to Christianity and all these things, yet you know very well, Bahati, even in all the history, I'm sure the history you've studied is what I've studied, in pre-colonial Africa, we were never told about homophobia in Africa. You know very well that it all started with the Christians coming and demonizing it. Perimapera, you know how we call them in our language, those missionaries. You also know that the penal code on which you're basing everything that you're doing against homosexuals was brought by the British when they colonized our nation.
Okay, developing this point that Victor Mikasa made about the fact that actually go through history and you see that homosexuality has existed. Raymond Perrier, you are at a Jesuit institute here in Johannesburg, and you've done some actual research into the existence of homosexuality in Africa.
Yes, I had the great privilege of living and working in the beautiful country of Uganda a few years ago. And as you know, David, one of the foundational stories of the Christian church in Uganda is the story of the Ugandan martyrs, a group of young men who were martyred because of their Christianity. But the reason, what triggered their martyrdom was that King Mwanga, the king of the Buganda, tried to have gay sex with them. So clearly it was the king, who was presumably African, indeed a representative of everything that was most important about the Buganda. It was he who was homosexual. It was the Christians who refused his advances.
That's just one king, though.
But is one king
King Mwanga II you're talking about.
Is one king not enough?
Well, I mean, it's not enough perhaps to base the whole, you know, history, others, perhaps other examples from Africa.
But it certainly challenges the idea that it was Europeans who brought in homosexuality. What it seems to suggest is that it was Europeans who brought in homophobia.
So you're saying that this is something that is very
Zainab, I just
history.
wanted to inform him that actually we have history before that happened, the king, and we know that this was brought by the Arab traders.
Okay,
it goes beyond that, yeah. It goes beyond what you know.
The Arabs would not say that they condone homosexuality either.
When I said Arab traders, I meant Western traders.
I'm Prince Cyprian Mngangeni from Congress of Traditional Leaders in Southern Hemisphere. We, as the traditional, do not support is not African homosexual, because God made men and women, never made men and women. So we do not support it. South Africa is the last country to be liberated, but it's the first country to promulgate this act.
And it doesn't represent your view, then, the fact that it's enshrined in the Constitution?
As the traditional leaders, we didn't support this thing. Even the survey was being conducted in this country. 98% never supported the same-sex marriages. But our government made a big mistake. Yeah, our government made a big mistake to promulgate to ban act. So we, as the traditional leaders, were still saying government must call a referendum to nullify this thing, because it's inhumane. It's against the law, it's against the code, where the Christians are the non-Catholics. We do not support same-sex marriage.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, let's now just look at why, not whether it's African or un-African, but why do you think homosexual rights should be supported? Paula.
I don't see it as homosexual rights, gay rights. I see it as equal rights. At the end of the day, people have people have different inclinations, and people should be allowed to express themselves in whatever way comes naturally to them. I think homophobia is a choice. I don't think it's a natural phenomenon. If children in Uganda are traumatized because they've been adopted by gay parents, it's because an environment has been created based on various systems, Christianity, African culture, whatever you want to call it, that makes them feel traumatized. We could also choose to create a culture that makes them feel accepted, that makes, that is based on tolerance. And I think that's really the sort of African culture we aspire to.
Let's see what Festus Mohai says here, because as a former president...